Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Well done for being prompt after lunch, because I know there was some quite big queues out there, so we really appreciate you coming back in. For those of you who were at the last REBA event, you might have seen me speak, so thank you for coming back if you did. So that's great. I wear a number of hats within Aviva, but I'm speaking to you today in the guise of our wellbeing lead, and very much speaking to you as an employer of 17,000 people in the UK. We're obviously a very large insurer. We've got a stand out there where we're talking about our new propositions, but this is a talk about us as an employer and the journey that we're on around wellbeing, what we've learnt, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and hopefully sharing some of those experiences with you guys today. So what I really want to focus on is how technology is emerging and being used that can really supercharge the impact of wellbeing services for employers to give to employees. And so we as Aviva have got a number of technology solutions, combining them with the more traditional offline and face-to-face solutions, and that's why we're starting to see a lot more take-up, a lot more utilisation within our employee base. And I'll take you through what some of those are. I will start with a rather sobering but quite familiar picture. So personal well-being, the well-being of us as a nation, is probably one of the biggest issues facing our country at the moment. And society in general, but probably employers in particular. There is an increasing onus being placed on employers to look after the well-being of their employees, and that's all aspects of well-being. And I think you're all employers in this room, and I'm sure you'll all be feeling that very keenly, the responsibility that you have to your employees. But also, there is a very clear business objective here. So any employer wanting to unlock the full potential of what is really their most valuable asset, their biggest USP, the people that work at their company, then you really have to focus on well-being and take away all of those reasons why those people cannot work at their full potential and do the best work of their lives, which I'm sure we all want to do for our own workforce. One of the first things we tried to understand within Aviva before we launched our wellbeing program was, what does wellbeing mean to people? And what we found was that it's a very broad church, and that it means very different things to different people. So it's definitely about physical health. Almost everybody talked about physical health, whether that's what you eat, how much exercise you do, how much you sleep. We're the worst sleepers in Europe, by the way. That was a recent study done by ourselves. We get less sleep as a nation than any other country in Europe. Not just about Brexit, but I'm sure we're getting even less sleep at the moment than anybody else. But also massive emerging challenges such as obesity and diabetes, which may appear to be quite remote from the workforce, but they're absolutely starting to drive absence, loss of productivity, people often never being able to return to the workforce. So there's a really important lens of physical health. Second one is emotional or mental health. Again, really, really high profile studies now being conducted about I'm talking about technology here and how technology can drive a huge amount of good in well-being, but technology is also a massive challenge for us. People never truly leave the workplace now. They can be looking at, I was going to say BlackBerry, looking at their smartphones 24 hours a day, checking emails 24 hours a day, and we really need to help people maintain that work-life balance when they are literally able to be at work all of the time. 1 in 6 UK workers now report a mental health issue every single week. That's from the latest research by the mental health charity Mind. Really, really worrying. It's now the biggest cause of long-term absence in the UK. It's overtaken musculoskeletal conditions, bad backs, knees, etc. Not as the biggest driver of overall absence, but the biggest driver of long-term absence. So people that are off for months, years, never returning to the workforce. So it's a huge challenge for all of us. And one which is often overlooked, and pleased to say it's not being overlooked today, because a number of stands outside talking about financial well-being and how that can impact on somebody's physical and mental well-being. It's all very, very connected. The old traditional Venn diagram really does apply to these things, both from a short-term financial perspective, so that's people living month to month, not being able to make ends meet, or not being able to suffer those financial shocks that come along in terms of the car needs to be repaired and that costs a few £100. Something else happens, you need to get a new fridge or whatever it is, fairly minor stuff. And often we can forget about these things, that people just don't have that financial safety net. And then the other lens around long-term financial planning. So people having a sense of, will they ever have enough money to retire? Do they understand their pension? Are they making the right provisions in terms of savings? And actually, do they have a long-term plan? Those things are all really, really prevalent when you ask people about their well-being, and that's what came through in Aviva. It's a challenge for all employers, large or small. We employ 17,000 people, but equally, if you employ 5 people, you're likely to have someone with a mental health condition. You're likely to have someone who's worried about their short-term finances. This really is for employers large and small. So what have we done? So if you can read that, well done, because there's a lot of quite small writing. This is the Wellbeing at Aviva heart. So Wellbeing at Aviva is our internal brand for the services that we're doing for our employees. And we launched this in May 2017, so we are still early days. We had wellbeing services a long time before that. I'm sure most of you guys in this room will have things like EAP, different occupational health services, might have had counselling services, whatever it was. But what we found was that it was really important to bring that together under a central idea, to actually bring those services and start to communicate to employees around this is what your wellbeing services look like in aggregate. Lots of feedback around, I don't know what I've got when I'm an employee. I don't know what benefits I get. I probably know how much you're contributing to my pension, but I have no idea what other services and benefits I get. And we see that picture with a lot of our clients as well in the UK. We had 3 very clear strategic aims. That's the first feedback I'd give to you is have a really clear set of goals that you're trying to achieve with a wellbeing program. So ours was all around prevention, early intervention, and learning more about our employees. And we have 4 elements of our Wellbeing at Aviva program, and that is probably the other key thing to feedback to you guys. Because wellbeing means such different things to different people, we wanted to make it holistic. We want to make it something for everybody, as relevant to as many people as possible across Aviva. So the 4 different sections are called Be Healthy, Be Mindful, Be Secure, and Be Awesome. Not sure about awesome, but I like the sentiment. So you can see you've got physical, you've got mental, you've got financial, and the Be Awesome is all around community and social involvement and social engagement, which again came through really, really clearly. And it's interesting when we talk to a number of our clients based in the US, this is almost always a pillar of their wellbeing programs. The whole social cohesion, community, feeling part of family or feeling part of a kind of collective group of people within a workforce is really, really important for their own kind of personal well-being. Specifically now, I want to talk about how technology is playing a role within Wellbeing at Aviva. And the real breakthrough that I think we've seen by deploying technology solutions is that employees are able to engage where they want and when they want. So the majority of our staff engage with their wellbeing services not in the workplace. They do it at weekends, they do it in the evenings, they do it whenever. Yeah, it's just there. There's an always-on element to Wellbeing at Aviva, so you use those services when you want to use them. The smartphone is the primary engagement vehicle. I think that's pretty clear. I had a quick wander around all of the stands out there, and I'm not sure anybody didn't have an app these days. Yeah, so there's a kind of challenge there of how many apps can you have on your phone, and certainly from our perspective, we're trying to make it one, whether that's to our customers or to our employees. But that really is the way that you can engage people, and it also blurs the lines between work and home in a positive sense. Talked around how technology can do it in a negative sense, but the fact that you can access these things whenever you want to is a really, really clear thing. And an individual's well-being does not start and stop within the workplace. It's absolutely a blend of their home life, their own personal health, how they're getting on at work, the relationship with their boss. All aspects of these things contribute to an overall individual's well-being. So the specific things that we are doing around technology, so we have online health checks. So that's people able to conduct a very simple diagnostic through their smartphone. We have a lifestyle tracking app that I'll still talk to you a bit more about in a second. We have a digital GP service, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that concept. That's had really, really positive take-up from our workforce. The ability of people now to not take a half day off to go and see the GP is a massive step forward, both for them and also for their managers, especially if they're in frontline call centres, frontline customer service areas. That's a really, really big bonus for a lot of our people. And we're also partnered with Headspace. So we are looking to develop our own mindfulness services around that mental health piece. But we identified Headspace, I'm sure you've heard of them, as a real leader in this area. And we've made Headspace available to all of our employees. And we've had really high utilisation of that over the last 12 months or so. Just a quick deep dive in terms of the Wellbeing app. And don't worry about taking all of the stats down, but I think the overriding message here is that by having a digital experience, and this is an experience which is based very much on social media principles. So it's about engaging people, it's about making it a bit fun, a bit light-hearted. There's a bit of community elements to this, challenge element to it, all based on a timeline, if you're familiar with things like Facebook or Twitter. And what this managed to do is create a real buzz within Aviva. So we launched this as part of the overall Wellbeing of Aviva program back in May 2017, with the principle of this can be something to help us create that energy and that momentum in the workforce. And I think we did that pretty well. We got 2,000 staff signed up within the first day. So we launched it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By 6 o'clock in the evening, we had 2,000 people signed up. And actively sharing some of their wellbeing priorities, connecting up things like their Fitbit data or their Apple Health data, and starting to engage in a wellbeing journey with us as their employer. We then got that up to about 4,800. It's now at 7,000 people, so approaching 50% of our workforce are registered on this app. And we are seeing the engagement maintain itself. So not all the time, and this is one of the major challenges of apps, not just in wellbeing, in all sectors. How do you maintain people keeping visiting and opening an app on an ongoing basis? And it has to be really good. If you think of the apps that are on the front page of your phone, they are pretty, I was going to swear there, they are very, very good apps, right? Because you open them all the time. They're the apps you open every day, and the reason you do that is every time you open it, you get value from it, whether that's utility, whether that's you're making a transaction, whether that's you're getting some humor, whether you're getting information, something is drawing you to that app every single day. And that's what we're trying to achieve with all of our wellbeing engagement via the smartphone. So just kind of playing back really, what some of the things I think we've learned did work and didn't work in terms of launching Wellbeing at Aviva. So timing is everything. We as Aviva were coming out, in 2017 we'd had a new chief executive in for about 18 months and we'd been in very much cost-cutting mode. Our share price was on the floor when they came in. We were in what's called a fix strategy, so quite command and control, quite a few redundancies, sales of various parts of Aviva around the world. That was not the time to launch a wellbeing program, yeah? But we were coming out of that and going into what was called our grow strategy. Internal jargon, obviously. And that was then a much more positive place to then launch Wellbeing at Aviva. So all organisations go in cycles. And what I'd say is make sure you pick the right time to do it. Because if you get it wrong, you might get really low take-up and really low engagement for no other reason than we just didn't get the timing right. Top, down and bottom up. So this is about having senior sponsorship. Have absolutely senior sponsorship on this stuff if you possibly can. Someone right at the executive level or very close to it, but also have people on the ground. So within Aviva, we have 8 or 9 core sites around the UK, and we had a group of people called health heroes in every one of our sites, doing the walk in the floors, standing in reception, standing in the cafeterias, promoting these services. And that combination gave really high awareness and really high credibility of what we were trying to do. Goodwill, so again, bring people along on this journey, make people part of it, feel like they can engage with it, but it's up to them. Insight and measurement, so we talked about setting objectives. If you set objectives, have a mechanism to measure them, yeah? Because it's really easy to say we've launched a fantastic wellbeing program, and then you go in after 12 months to see the chief finance officer, and he goes, well, come on then, where's the return on investment? So there's a message to play back to him of just be a bit patient, but it's also really helpful to have those metrics that you've been tracking against. And the final one is sustainability, and what we mean by that is be in this for the long term. So don't expect to get everything nailed down within 12 months. If you're going to make this commitment, absolutely make that commitment for the long term, because I think it would be very demotivating for workforces to launch some really smart services and then after 12 months or 24 months go, oh, by the way, we've run out of money, or by the way, thanks for that, it was really useful, we're not going to give them to you anymore. So be in it for the long term. The very final bit, that's all around creating a culture of wellbeing. So absolutely create that culture around the services that you're trying to develop. Again, that top down, bottom up is absolutely the way to do that. And the final piece, just to share around data, is that, or rather technology, is it gives you data. It gives you hard factual evidence about what's happening on your wellbeing programs. What we've been able to do with those, the 4 technology pieces that I showed to you before, is we as Aviva have now a snapshot of our workforce, both at a point in time and on an ongoing basis. We're able to see things that are happening in our workforce, and therefore our HR community are able to take actions based on factual data. Just to give you a little example of that, our biggest site is in Norwich and our second biggest site is in York. We used to be known as Norwich Union, right? So that's our biggest site is in Norwich. We took over a company called General Accident. If you're old enough to remember them, they were based in York. They're our two biggest sites. When we are able to look at the relative health and well-being engagement of those two sites. And what we found was one of them, I'm not going to say which, was a lot healthier and a lot less stressed than the other one. And HR always thought they knew that, but they now had objective data to prove that. And what that allowed them to do was to go to the powers that be and say, guys, we need to do some work in this site because all is not well. And what we've seen is those metrics have now moved. So it's a really powerful way of HR being able to influence within the organisation with hard data. That is it from me. Hopefully that's been really useful. We have not got it all nailed. We're on a journey. But please come and find me. I'll be on the Aviva stand outside of here. I'll try not to sell you anything. It's difficult for insurance companies. We're very good at trying to do that. But yeah, hopefully that's been really useful, and I'll hand back.